to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Kristian Dolan, CEO and founder of northteq. Thanks for joining me, Kristian.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. I've been watching the show for a while, so I'm excited to be here.
No, I'm glad to have you on here. I want to say, I think we're at episode 127 now, so we're getting up there. And I want to say throughout those last, almost 3 years now of doing these, that background's pretty amazing there. So
what are we
looking at?
I thought it would complement the fireside. So, I'm calling in from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so that's the tundra behind you. So just so you can get a feel from it from down in the Phoenix area, that's frozen Minnesota behind me.
It looks serene. Arizona's been weird this year, man. Like the weather's been more in the 40s than I can imagine. I think when I was in Minneapolis in February, it was warmer here or warmer there than here. I don't get it, but whatever.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I don't feel bad for you at 40 degrees. That sounds pretty good right now.
No, that's fair. Perfectly fair. So Kristian, for those people who might not be familiar with yourself, do you mind just kind of talking about your career and career to date, specifically in equipment finance?
Yeah, sure. So to go back, so my daughter just turned 20, my oldest daughter, and I started my equipment finance career when she was born. I went to work for a company called Capital Stream. They was building version 2 as a software engineer for Capital Stream in Seattle, Washington, and I was put in charge of building the Super Trump integration. So with all those Ivory folks, I worked side by side with them integrating Capital Stream to do some after-tax pricing. And just like you, once you get pulled into equipment finance, that's it. You're stuck. So and fortunately stuck. So that's where it all started.
Sure. Excellent. And then I guess kind of what brought you to be at northteq, and what made you decide to go out and start your own company?
Sure. So I worked for Capital Stream for a number of years in Seattle. When we had kid number 2, my wife really wanted to get back to Minnesota. So I actually resigned as an engineer, moved from Seattle to Minneapolis, started building loan origination systems for Wells Fargo on the mortgage side. And at the time, an opportunity came up to consult back with Capital Stream as really just a 1099 contractor. So I did that, and that introduced me to a lot of bigger clients. I really got to know Deb Rubin, Bill Hennick over at TCF back in the day, and then did some work over at Scotiabank and Caterpillar Financial. Really got me involved with that career into the equipment finance industry, really as just a hired gun as a software engineer, and then decided to partner up with Daniel Nelson. We became co-owners of Tamarack, did that for a few years, and then decided that this Salesforce-based loan origination software that we started up there would be better as a self-sustaining entity. And so we rolled that off in July of 2020. And since then, we've grown, probably tripled in size, and a number of clients since then.
No, perfect. And, what was that like going from like a hired gun to, what, I think I want to do this myself?
Boy, that's a good question.
It was one of the reasons I asked from a context perspective was I just made this decision 4 months ago. So that's where I'm just wondering where your mindset's at on it.
Yeah. I mean, there's pros and cons. I mean, the pros is you determine your own destiny. In other words, you decide what your market segment is, who you want to help, what type of software you want to build, how you want to market, and how you want to do all that. And that's all super fun and exciting as a business owner, but it also is a tremendous amount of stress. When you're a 1099 contractor and you're saying, hey, go build this integration to Super Trump, you're like, okay, I can do that. That scope is contained. Where as a business owner now, it's much broader. You have much more responsibility, and with that comes a lot more demands.
Plus, you have people that rely on you and everything else, and it just makes an extra driver to even work that extra hour, send an extra email, make that extra phone call.
So that's so true, Jesse. I mean, once you have a number of people that are relying on you for a paycheck, it changes the game completely.
Nope, nope, spot on, man, spot on. So let's talk northteq, if you don't mind. Just kind of introduce the company. You already mentioned it's built on Salesforce, so
Yeah,
let's talk about that.
sure. So so northteq, why do we exist? We are focused really on three main things at northteq. I'd say first is we are trying to understand our customer's customer as much as we can. And often that's going to be the vendor. So our customers are working with vendors or brokers and trying to create an amazing experience for them, frictionless experience for them to originate loans. And so, a big portion of our focus is really on that user experience of the vendor, of the broker, of the borrower. I think, one thing that was interesting going back into my career in loan origination, 20 plus years of loan origination experience, so much of it has been focused on, hey, let's talk to the docs folks, let's talk to the credit folks, which is extremely important. You have to make sure their demands are met. But from a user experience standpoint, the focus is on those internal lending users. And I think the borrower and the vendor and the broker sometimes are neglected in that and more of an afterthought. You plug on a portal or something to give them an experience, and you just kind of like integrate, you feed them, versus kind of reverse engineering that and saying, well, what is it for a vendor? Like, what's their experience to like originate a loan? And then let's back into, well, what does that mean for the credit folks? And what does that mean for the doc folks and things like that? So we've been really trying to focus on that as the forefront. What is that user experience? And make that be the driver. I'd say second about northteq, our focus is on automation, and it's not just for automation for efficiency's sake. I mean, we all can appreciate the labor constraints of 2022, right? They're horrendous trying to find people. I mean, to find operation folks, I'm sure, Jesse, you got asked all the time, like, hey, any good ops folks? Any good credit folks? People, those were far and few between. And automation became, right?
Yeah.
And so automation became really important, and that's a driver, but not the sole driver. I think the driver for automation comes into that user experience. So there are some recent surveys done by the AACFB on like broker portals and their experiences with lenders and why they choose them, and there's been a lot of negative reaction to like using them. And a lot of it was because, well, it doesn't add value for them. There's like, well, why do we want to use a portal? That just pushes the work on us as a vendor or broker, right? That just means I need a key in the app versus I can send a letter, a PDF to the lender and have them take care of it. So like, what can you do with automation to like improve that? Well, one thing we're releasing on our next release of Aurora is you can drag and drop a credit app, and it will pre-fill in the credit application for you. So you're not rekeying things like that. If a lender can drag and drop a credit app or invoice in, have it pre-fill in a credit app, then hit submit, and then within minutes, get an approval back via SMS or email, that's going to entice them to want to use it. Like, why would they send an email off with an attached PDF? And hopefully the person reads it and is not out to lunch, and then half hour later they get a response back that's been received. That whole experience is clunky, and of course they'll rather email off a PDF if there's no alternative, and otherwise they just have to rekey it. But if they can use a portal, get that whole experience, have automation on the back end, get an approval within minutes, or, hey, we need additional documents within minutes on what you need to close the deal, then that's just going to like remove the friction. That will make the vendor, broker, or borrower want to interact with you digitally. So that's another tenet with northteq is the automation. And the third, you talked about, Salesforce, us being built on Salesforce. The number one reason we're built on Salesforce is because it's an open platform. It has the biggest business marketplace, period, right? Like if you want to as an example, just even within our industry, let's say that you do after-tax pricing. And so therefore you want to use Super Trump like we talked about earlier. Well, the Ivory folks have a Salesforce.com app. Well, let's say you want to do things more cost effectively and you do T-value pricing. Well, T-value has an app for Salesforce. Let's say that you want to file UCCs and use Wolters Kluwer. Well, there's an app for that. Well, let's say you use CSC. Well, there's an app for that. If you pull business reports via Equifax, there's an app for that. If you pull them via PayNet, there's an app for that. There's an app for Experian. I could go on and on. There's all these plug and play apps, right?
Sure.
That's where you get the value is you're in an open platform. If you don't see an app, build the integration yourselves. You don't have to stand in line with a vendor. If northteq is unable to meet your needs as a vendor after you're on Salesforce, you can go to another vendor, or you can have your own developers do it. It's just the open platform. So I think those are the three. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but those are
it's
with northteq. It's the user experience, it's the automation, and it's the open platform.
Yeah, and the open platform. I mean, that's such an interesting conversation to have. I mean, I sold software for 10 years, right? And at the end of the day, when you sit there and it's like the scope, right? You have this defined scope initially when you start, and then it just keeps going. And then at some point you're like, okay, just because there's an app for that, you don't need that app, okay? Because that only impacts like one deal out of 1,000. Let's stop.
Yeah, right. You're right about the growing too. And a lot of times, especially as a smaller company, you might want to start with pure out of the box, but then you're trying to like create these differentiators yourself as a lender, right? And how do you do that if you're constrained technologically by going to one vendor to do 100% of your work? That's going to be very difficult to create that differentiator in a timely manner that you need to as a business.
Absolutely. And like traditional, like I consider like an app almost like a module, right? That's what we have this base system, and then you have this module, that module, this module. That's very specific to that particular lease or loan accounting platform. And it's like, oh, I want this module, so I don't need to hire these two people to do this job, similar to an app, right? But then it's like, well, what happens when you turn on this module? Then you need to configure it, training, all these other things. There's an app. Typically, a lot of these things are like one-click integrations, still some element of training on it and everything, but it just seems like a more seamless, efficient process, quite frankly.
It is. And one thing that's nice too is, as far as like modules versus apps, I think the key differentiator there is having multiple vendors, right? Because like if you have a vendor, just simple example is like Notarize as an example, like Notarize, eNotary, that's all they do. And they've got an app that does it. So it's not like you've got this Notarize module and you've got this integration and this vendor that doesn't know what you're talking about. That's all they do, and they're going to be good at that. And it's the same with, if you use DocuSign for e-signature, that's all they do. That's all that the app does. And so you start working on these specialty apps that you can plug and play, and they work really well. There's in Salesforce, as an example, the DocGen is extremely powerful. And the reason why is there are companies that all they do is DocGen. And so if you want to build out like your document library where, hey, this is in California, so we obviously need the disclosure, and we need this paragraph because of some environmental clause, and it's a titled vehicle, so we need some verbiage around that. Like you don't even have to like create templates for all this. It can be like sections that you just pull together. And the reason why it's, you've got tools that powerful is because that's all the company does is DocGen on Salesforce. And it's not unique to equipment finance. It's just generic.
No, and it's like stick to your core competency, figure out something you can do, perfect it, and then hone in on that. I mean, that's what equipment finance is basically born out of. You have all these companies, they all do the same thing, but one company figures out a way to do it a little bit better.
Yeah,
and that's their specialty.
Yeah, exactly.
What a concept.
Yeah, right.
So how many employees are you up to? Do you just have an office in Minnesota? Or are you around the country?
So we had an office downtown Minneapolis, and we still do, but we've downsized quite a bit the office. We work mostly remote now, and we're nationwide now. So we started probably about 2021. because of rapid growth and quite frankly, nobody was going into the office anyways. We opened up as a national company. And so now we've got about half our staff, which is probably 16, 17 of us in Minnesota, and then
Okay.
about the same amount spread across the country, about 15 different states.
Well, that was going to be my next question is, July 2020, great time to start a new company, right? It's fantastic time. You can get everyone
Yeah,
around a campfire and,
yeah.
have a
And
good old time.
no uncertainty, right? No uncertainty. You had a clear path for what the future laid ahead of you.
So what was that like? What was that thought process like where it's like, okay, I don't know when I'm going to be able to leave my house? Because I think that didn't Minnesota have like a stay at home order at some point where it's like you couldn't leave your house?
We were a pretty locked down state, and not only you're staying at home, right? I mean, we've got 3 children, so and they're yelling at me to get off my Zoom call. Hey, Dad, I need to be in class. Get off. It's like I'm the one working here. I got
Right.
gotta have like some priority, but no, it was tough from a business standpoint. Um, there was a lot of uncertainty, and it was interesting though, like, and I saw this back in 2009 as well. It seemed like the companies that really did well after the pandemic and really got to take advantage took that couple month window of like downtime, of slow time, to re-engineer, invest, clean house. And it blows my mind that people have the confidence during a global pandemic to do that. I saw it, I think I mentioned Bill Hennick with TCF before. I remember in 2009, TCF made a major investment on a technology upgrade at that time. And I was like, wow, like the confidence. And then they, you saw what they grew into before they were purchased by Chemical and then Huntington, right? But they
Sure,
grew
sure.
a massive company with that level of confidence. And we saw that from a number of our clients too, where they had the confidence to invest in technology, took a breather, and they've excelled.
And what does that do, from a culture perspective? Or it's like, hey, you reach out to, I'm not going to name anybody. You just say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What are your thoughts? And they're probably like, what?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Now?
I know. It's impressive, right? It just shows, I think with and I think it probably comes from experience, right? I mean, some of our industry is fortunate where you go to the industry conferences, and we're doing our best to like bring in a younger generation, more diverse generation to our
Sure.
industry. But when you do go talk to the old timers, right? I mean, it's amazing. They've seen this, they've
Yeah.
seen this every 10 years, and they have the confidence to kind of see through it, and they've seen the results of when you do. And it's always inspiring, right? To get that from the veterans of the industry.
And that's where me doing these on a weekly basis with individuals like yourself and typically senior leaders of organizations, where people are like, what do you think? Are you concerned? Everything going on? It's kind of like the optimism that I have from these people. Like, yeah, no, I mean, it's going to hurt some people, but our industries will stand the test of time, and we'll just kind of move on and go from there. And it'll flush out a lot of, the stuff that people shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, gosh, we're now is it 1.16 or 1.17 trillion dollar industry, and I don't even know how many zeros that is. I literally don't know how many zeros that is. I mean, it's a lot of billions, right? So to take, even if things contract a little, that's still a massive um total addressable market, right? Like that's a massive amount of businesses that are financing equipment. Even if we take, a small step, or even if it doesn't grow or even shrinks a little bit, that's still a massive market.
Well, and especially from a opportunity perspective, half of those organizations still use Excel.
Well, hopefully we can change that. Hopefully you can change that.
I still giggle every now and then where you go into an organization, they have a couple thousand contracts, and it's like, what are you doing? It's like they either have an AS400 or some access database or something. It's running with like duct tape and like bubble gum, and you're just like, what? What is going on here?
Yeah. It is kind of funny, but at the same time, like with it's, depending on we talked about it a little bit before we started, like the ticket size, right? Like
Yeah,
sometimes those basic technologies suffice, right? For some very large ticket items, mostly offline, maybe, obviously, CRMs are nice for everybody to have just a repository notes, things like that. But outside of that, sometimes it's, with those larger ticket deals, it's okay. But I hear you, but sometimes it's not, right? And you're just pulling your hair out trying to losing deals and get deals out the door.
what was amazing is when I first started in 2005. The biggest competition I had was always in house,
Yeah.
and I still think that's true. And in regards to software, if someone's at least using a competitor's system or another system, at least they believe in the ability to go to an outside source and they don't want to do it themselves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, they've at least made that leap.
that's fantastic, Christian. So, any other thoughts on kind of like technology and where you see things going? Are you guys stuck the flag in where it's like we're going to be the best origination system out there? Is there ever that little inkling in the back of your mind where all the potential challenges that the back end systems have in the marketplace? It's
Yeah.
always that, I'm sure, kind of inkling where it's like, I have this platform.
It is funny. We do get asked a lot about the back end ambitions, like would we want to migrate to the back end? And obviously, I guess a couple thoughts on that. One is, we talked about the size of our industry, right? $1.16 trillion. That is such a big there's so many companies, there's so much opportunity with a market that big. I think what we need to focus on at northteq is to be the best indirect small ticket leasing platform out there. And so that again is focusing on that user experience of the vendors and brokers and borrowers and getting those small ticket deals in end to end. We call it end to end in 3 minutes, end to end in docs out in 3 minutes, right? And just provide a turnkey platform that can do that. That's where our focus is. The back end is two things. One, it's really hard, right? Like the back end is really difficult with all the accounting rules and the tax rules and all. So it's hard. But I think for us too is when we talk to our clients, a lot of them just want the back end to work. They want it to work. They want to be able to get invoices out, cash receipts in. They want the accounting to be correct. It's not necessarily and I could be wrong here, and I'm sure people will tell you where I'm wrong after this podcast, but a lot of times how they service is extremely important from a customer service standpoint, but it's not a differentiator, right? It's not like, hey, here's our differentiator in the market. And so that's why we're focused on the front end, is we think that the front end is a differentiator. Clients will differentiate themselves there. They will make the investment, and then we will integrate with several of the very good back end systems that work. And that's kind of our focus for now.
Fantastic answer, and definitely refreshing to hear. And it is, to your point, not to have a little giggle on other people's behalf, but it's like I just want to close them on that, man. Just let me close.
Right.
Close.
Yeah.
But this is my 18th year, and I think there's reasons why some bigger ERPs and stuff don't really swim downstream. They've tried.
They've tried. Yeah.
But it's not a lot of. I mean, there's a dozen maybe LOS systems.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? I mean, not LOS, lease accounting systems, I guess I'll go, but it's like loan accounting as well. So
yeah. It is. There have been a lot of people that tried, and I think that's what's interesting with the industry, right? Is every now and then, you and I have been going to the Operations Technology Conference forever, and uh, and every now and then someone will make an entrance or a re-entrance, like every 5 years or so, and say, look, there's big opportunities here. Let's go in, and they get, they do it for a couple of years. They realize it's really hard. It's not an easy industry, because like we were talking earlier, I don't remember if it was in the podcast, but about that relationship and trust
Sure.
standpoint. It's not easy to build that, and you can't come in a year or two and expect big results right away. And if you do get results, it's hard to deliver, right? And you have to deliver.
Well, sure. And that's where, as you grow and it's all of a sudden you're gaining all this momentum, it's like, yeah, I want this, I want that, that's perfect. And at some point it's like, no, focus. You got your three things that you guys are doing there, focus. Otherwise, if you chase the shiny ball too much, then it's like, anything can be done with time and money, but why?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And that's something that we're trying to really refine, is like what we do well and what we don't do well, and try to make sure that we're clear with that.
Well, and I think if anything, that'd be a fantastic case study, either this year or in a couple of years, where it's like, hey, this is what we shot at, this is where it was going, this is what we did like, this is what, because I always like to ask people where it's like, okay, you've been in business, this is now your third, well, you're not even 3 years old yet officially, right? What would you recommendation? What wouldn't you do that you did before if you had to go back with a blank slate, right? It's like, God, if I was 20 and remember everything I know now, how much
I
different would
know,
I be?
I got a big long list.
It's fine. It's fine. We'll save that for part two down the line here.
Yeah.
But any additional like kind of technology trends you want to talk about? I know we've covered quite a bit of
As far as technology trends, one thought I had was, it's funny with our industry, or funny in just in tech in general, right? You do end up seeing trends that come up. Obviously AI is right now. This is AI's time to shine. You hear it a lot, and I think there's a lot to be said. You and I talked about. I actually took you sent me questions in advance, and I actually put them in Chat GBT, and I got a much more intelligent answer than I'm about to give in Chat GBT. It's actually really, really impressive. So, but one thing I find, and right or wrong, and I think people have different approaches to technology, and I think that's good. I think some people come at technology from a push standpoint. They find a cool technology, call it blockchain, call it AI, robotics, whatever, and they'll push it. They'll go find a problem, and they'll find a problem within our industry and really solve that. And I think there's something to be said about that approach. That's not our approach, and that's not my approach. I mean, my approach has always been focus on the customer, focus on what their challenges are, focus on what their problems are, and then go find the technology that can improve it. And that might be AI, it might be, ICR, it might be some of these other technologies,
sure.
but focus on the problem and then try to leverage that. As an example, with our push to create that digital experience for vendors, brokers, and I mentioned that you get a lot of pushback, like people are like, well, we tried systems in the past and they haven't worked, and we made investments, and it's like, well, why? Like, why haven't that? Can we talk to the vendor? Can we talk to the broker, unpack that a bit? And simple things like with our latest release, before our May release, we went out and we interviewed a bunch of vendors and brokers on like, okay, well, what would prevent you from using this current portal or not? And they're like, well, to be honest, we work with multiple lenders, right? Like, let's be frank here. Vendors typically have their primary lender, but they very often will have a B or C credit lender if they're typically do A, and they'll work
Sure,
with.
sure.
And definitely on the broker side, right? I've never met a broker that doesn't have more than a handful of lenders they work with. And so, well, let's address that then. What if you got the app in, drag and drop app, or even key in an app old school, and within the lender's website, simply be able to like resend out that credit app to multiple lenders with your logo. The lender's not capturing anything. You have full discretion to do it within your own browser, and they're just really providing you all that they want is a look at the deal. If you give them a look at the deal, if you decide to go elsewhere or they decline it, either one, you can just send it off to another lender. Total low tech option to try to address the problem, right? So
Sure.
there's no, but that's that's the sort of thing we're looking at. And then on the more high tech is like the app to app, right? Being able to drag and drop a credit app that they have handwritten or have typed in and have that be processed. That's cool. That's using machine learning. That's using AI behind the scenes. But it's addressing a problem, and that problem is we want to digitize the experience to give them a better experience and create efficiencies for the lender. So again, focusing on the challenge and opportunity, and then find the technology that meets it is really our passion.
No, that's perfect. I kind of been using since I started this Consult Disrupt like full time in November. At the end of the day, it's putting the right butt in the right seat to tackle the right need, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and that's just kind of that approach where there's people and there's processes that fit certain things, and it's like don't fit the square peg in the round hole. There's
No.
something out there right now, if it's a human on a keyboard or if it's a piece of technology that can help an individual or an organization, and let's find it, make that connection, and then we move on and make the next customer happy.
Yeah, and that finding it's not that hard, right? You just have to
No,
talk to people. What are their challenges? What are their opportunities? I mean, there's so many people that are willing to share here in our industry. It's just a matter of just talking to them.
sure. So you've been in the industry for 20 years now.
Years.
So it's almost like the Hotel California, right? It's like once you're in, you're not going out. I've used
Really?
that analogy forever, and then Joe at Oakmont brought it up last week, and I'm like,
Yeah. So I've always used the mafia, right? Like you never leave the mafia. It's kind of like that.
as someone who's from New York and I lived in Jersey for 10 years, I can't say that because
Oh, yeah, that's a little too close to home, right?
but I could see because then it gives that stigma where it's like ugh, the mafia, who's the don. It's like no, we're not going there.
Right.
No, but I mean I love it. I love this industry. I think I'll be seeing you. So you were gracious enough to let me air this probably within like 48 hours of recording it. So thank you. So at the time that this is airing, we'll be next to each other in San Diego.
Yeah, I'm looking
So
forward to that. So my wife is joining me, and I'm excited to introduce her to you. So make sure you stop by. She's actually in the background here listening to all this. So she's going to tell you thank you for listening to all the garbage that her husband was giving you.
well, I will do my best not to disappoint her in person. So,
Or you will
but
not.
I do ask everyone who comes on here, Kristian, a little fun fact about themselves. Um, so if you don't mind sharing something about you that makes you tick outside of what you do in equipment finance.
Okay, I'm glad you added that last part about what makes me tick. Because I knew that question was coming, I was like, "There's nothing fun about me. I'm a software engineer in Minnesota. That's exciting as it gets." No, I
I
would
thought you
say,
were gonna. I thought you were gonna run out the window there and do a snow angel real quick and then run back. But
oh,
anyhow,
that would be
fine.
good. That'd be great. Well, uh, I guess tidbit about me is, and really this is kind of a call out to anybody active in the equipment finance industry. I love to be active. I've gone out mountain biking with Chad from Turbo Lease and Chris Embaum, and there's opportunities to go skiing, mountain biking. I love to kite surf. I was really looking forward to the annual conference in Florida. I was going to dovetail a couple of days of kite surfing. I love to just go out for runs, be active, and so I guess that's a little tidbit about me. If it's something active outside, and
Sure.
we're at a conference. I'm a terrible golfer, so if it's ever a golf alternative somebody's looking to do, I'm game. Just look me up.
Yeah, kite surfing. I've never tried it. It's just the whole vision of me getting on the thing and falling over sideways and then
Yeah.
just going down the water
No,
sideways.
that's basically it. I always say it's most people have tried water skiing, right? And when
Yeah.
you fall, you kill the engine. Kite surfing is it's like water skiing, but you can never kill the engine nor let go of the rope. So once you fall, you just keep getting drugged. So it's a great sport. Good thing to
Sure.
try when you're 50.
Fantastic. I just don't know the amount of liquid courage it would probably take to get me out there, but then I probably wouldn't be a good, stamina, whatever. But anyhow, to be determined. Maybe we'll do a fundraiser for EFC to see how much money we can raise to get me on one of those things.
I love it. Yeah, count us in as a sponsor there.
And kind of in closing here, Kristian, at the end of the day, why do business with northteq?
It's a good question, Jesse. I think first and foremost is our focus on our customer and our customer's customer. We want to listen to you. We want to listen to your customers, and we want to build an experience for your customers.
Perfect. And it's built on great technology, and you have some great resources that you've assembled on your team, Kristian.
Great. So, appreciate that feedback, Jesse. And thank you for what you're doing at Equipment Finance Cares. I think that's been transformative here in the industry. I think even the derivative initiatives that have come out of it that even aren't directly related to EFC has been positive. I think it's changed the focus of the industry. So, and thanks for doing this podcast. I love to watch some of these industry veterans and even the industry newcomers here in different perspectives. So thank you.
No, appreciate your time. Safe travels. I'm assuming tomorrow to California, and I look forward to seeing you and meeting your wife.
Yeah, me too, Jesse. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Kristian. Take care.